Welcome into another edition of Valpo Sports Night. I'm your host, Drew Taylor. Joined to me is Andrew Stem. He's a sports reporter for the Northwest Indiana Times, and Chris Kleinon-Schultz, sports director at WVUR. Guys, as we start to hit Horizon League play, where do you see the Crusader women's basketball team finish in the conference standings when it's all said and done?
Just the way everything's playing out at this point, I kind of see the Crusaders in the same position that they were a year ago, fighting with the Youngstown State Penguins for a quote-unquote respectable spot around the bottom. What's so difficult, though, we haven't had a good look at what the real Valpo women's basketball team can do, because between players ineligible for transferring in and having some NCAA issues, and obviously all the injuries that have beset this team, we don't know the potential at this point. There's been some games where Valpo's only had 7 players to go with, and technically like 2.5 guards, where Keith Freeman likes to have 3 out and 2 on the inside, preferably. There's a lot of potential with this group, but until everyone starts playing together, it's tough to tell just based on the previous finishes, especially the 5 losses to open the season. I'd kind of have them lower, 9th, maybe 10th.
See, I'm going to take it a little bit higher than that, only because when you look at the bottom of the Horizon League standings, teams 6 through 10 have 1 or 2 wins so far in the non-conference season. So it strikes me that there's Green Bay, there's kind of the upper echelon of teams 2 through 5, and then there's everybody else at the bottom of the conference. And I think, especially given the injuries and also the fact that you're starting a couple of freshmen. You got Shakira Scott, you've got Mallory Ladd, who are playing big-time minutes, and they're still kind of trying to get used to both Division I basketball and playing with the rest of this Valpo team. If they can start to gel in non-conference play, and then once Horizon League play gets going, I think they can be a solid middle-of-the-pack team, but depth is really going to be an issue. They are going to have to come back from these injuries, and they're going to need to be playing more than 8 players a night, or it's going to be a really long stretch once you get into February. All those games start to wear on you.
How about Mallory Ladd, though? She does remind me a lot of Tabitha Gerardo. Her start last year as a freshman came in, did a lot on the glass, is rebounding at a great rate right now, and she's putting in some points, very versatile, can also step outside and hit that 3.
She's been doing a lot so far this year, and I really like not only the adjustments she's been able to make already to the college game, but just the confidence she has. I went with the team to Edwardsville for that season opener they had against SIUE, and they put the ball in her hands at the end of the game. Down by 3, 1 shot to get the team into overtime. You have a couple of seniors and upperclassmen on the floor, but who do you give the ball to? You give the ball to the freshman off an inbound play, and a post player no less. You put her out there, and the very first 3, I believe, she made the whole game was that one just to send the contest into overtime. She's been able to take all this playing time, even if it's coming in off the bench. She has stepped up and done so much for this team. It's already a deep squad in the post, but Mallory Ladd is really adding an extra element.
And I think she's earned that, not to say that the other players aren't out there working hard, but you get a sense she's out there after practice taking jump shots. She's out there putting in extra work. I remember they posted the Crusaders wall on the Facebook of her taking shots after practice, being the only one left in the gym. She has had a really skilled high school career and has wanted to come through, and she's wanted to continue that. She's put in all this work, and it's paying off for her real early here in the season.
Hopefully she still maintains that chip on her shoulder. As you mentioned, that hard work is starting to pay off here. Guys, now same question for the men's team. This year in the Horizon League is very deep. Where do you see the Crusaders finishing?
I like them. I think they can be at the same spot where they had a chance a year ago to end up with one of the double byes. When you look at where everybody is right now, Cleveland State has that outstanding win on Vanderbilt's home floor that just continues to look better and better as time goes on. They beat a real good St. Bonaventure team who's going to be a force in the A-10 behind Xavier and Temple and a couple of other teams, but they'll be fighting for the top of the A-10. And, then beyond that, Butler lost a lot. They've got some really talented players in Kyle Marshall and Andrew Smith, but they've struggled to come together so far, losing a couple of games at Evansville that people thought they were going to win. They haven't been quite as good. And I think once you get beyond that, there's Milwaukee, there's Cleveland State. Detroit has been disappointing without Eli Holman. They haven't been nearly as good as people thought they were going to be this year.
Notre Dame, though, in one of those non-conference.
And then they turn around and lose a game like Bowling Green and need to go overtime to beat Austin Peay. So they've been up and down. They will be a team to reckon with if Holman ever comes off a suspension and comes back. But I really think that there hasn't been a team that has separated themselves so far from the pack, really. And if the Crusaders can continue to play at the level that they did in the first half against Ohio State, the first half against Arizona, the entire game against Akron and Duquesne, which really, when you look at mid-major wins, are as good of comparative wins that any team in the Horizon League has when you compare Akron and Duquesne, what those teams have done elsewhere. If they can keep playing well, I could see them easily picking up one of those double byes. Can they win the conference? I don't know if they're quite deep enough for that, but I think if they can put it together in the right spots, they can definitely come away with a double bye.
It's sports like this that make me love the Horizon League because everyone's so deep. I think we throw out the term parity a little bit, probably more so than we absolutely need it. And I think it's sometimes, even as you pointed out with what Detroit's been going through, there's also a little bit of lack of consistency as well. So far with what this Crusader team's been able to do, pulled out some very nice wins during the 2K Sports Classic sub-regional games in Valpo, had good first halves against some powerful teams like Arizona and Ohio State, a Buckeye team which is arguably the top squad in the entire country.
Yeah, especially after what they did to Duke the other night.
It was absolutely amazing what they were able to do there, especially how they started off that second half against Valpo as well. There's definitely a lot of good players on the floor. I like the way that Kevin Van Vyk has been playing, especially with the lack of true post players that Valpo has. He has really needed to step up. In fact, I'm not sure, I think it was you who brought the reference to me. You were listening to, I think, one of the games, and Valpo had scored like 8 points early on, and Todd Eichau was on play-by-play, and he says, oh, that's all the points with the backcourt right now. And you're like, well, who really qualifies as the front court with this team? But Kevin Van Vyk has done a whole lot, and even Hrvoje Vucic, he still has a lot to grow on, and he's been a little bit disappointing, I'd say, just in terms of with his size. I think a lot of people really expected the world of him. He's kind of slowly coming along, and he's still even more of a finesse guy, but he's a little bit serviceable as well. So even with the players that are on the floor, there are options.
I really do think the two guys who are going to be the key to this team are going to be Eric Buggs and Kevin Van Vyk. Van Vyk gives us the post presence, and we're going to need 25 minutes a game from him. You know what you're going to get with Ryan Brokoff. You know he's going to go out, he's going to score 12 to 14 points, he's going to pull down 6 to 8 rebounds. It might be flashy, it might not, but at the end of the day, those are what his numbers are going to be. And when you look at Eric Buggs, if he can stay on the floor, stay out of foul trouble, he's that true point guard the team needs. The offense looks so much crisper when he's running that offense, and it allows Jay Harris, what you got to see in the first half against Ohio State, to slide over to that two-guard position where he is really much more comfortable. He had 15 points in the first half. And if Buggs can stay on the floor and stay out of foul trouble, those are two guys, if they can put in 30 minutes a game each, this is an offense that can score a lot of points.
In my mind, I'm throwing out the Ohio State and Arizona games. I mean, those are two tough contests. They're going to help the Crusaders as they hit Horizon League play, but the two games that I'm putting the most stock in is the Akron and Duquesne game. We mentioned those. Those are two games that could have easily gone the other way. Now, guys, sticking with the men's basketball team, I want to assess Coach Bryce Drew. What are your thoughts on him this year?
I really like the performance that Coach Bryce Drew has had so far, especially, we talked a little bit already about Akron and Duquesne, but especially Akron, just at the end, having that kind of a situation, trying to pull out a game late. He knew almost exactly what to do for the situation. I thought he handled the team well. Obviously, he spent right around half a decade on the bench behind his father, learning the ropes. And even when he's talked about it as a player when he was finishing up his NBA career, wanting to kind of soak up any kind of coaching knowledge he get. He definitely has the knowledge. He definitely has the passion as well. And so far, just with the few games we can assess so far, I like what Bryce Drew has done as the head man for the Valpo basketball
Sure, it's like
team.
he's pushing all the right buttons. When you look at it, I mean, this is a team that realistically probably goes 8 players deep. I mean, you can stretch it into 9. You pick up Tommy Kurth and Hrvoje Vucic, but I mean, you could even make the argument they're only going 7 deep. And the most masterful job, we talked about it, was to win 3 games in 3 days. And the ability to manage the bench, according to Nick Shelton, started on Saturday against IU Kokomo. They brought in a couple of guys off of intramural squad to come in and play, and had a lot of success. And he's just been pushing all the right buttons so far. And you talk about that Akron game. That was a game this team won without hitting a 3-point shot. And I first started here as an undergrad back in 2001, and honestly can't remember any instance at all where any Crusader team could win without hitting a 3-point shot. And the offense is predicated on it, but he knows enough about his personnel to be able to get them to do different things. And if the threes aren't going in, thanks to Van Vyk, now all of a sudden they can go down low and they can score in other ways.
You're right. The adjustment is big for me. I mean, you look at not making a 3, then you have to adjust. That's what the great coaches do. If the 3 ball is not dropping, you have to make an adjustment throughout the game, and I think Bryce Drew has done that. I think he demands respect from his players, too. Not to say that Homer didn't, but I think Bryce Drew may be a little bit harder on his players and might check some of the players sometimes if they're lackadaisical on defense, things like that.
Well, and when you look at it, I think, and again, no disrespect to Homer, because he had all those wins. He had more than 600 wins. But when you look at, when your coach is a guy who played in the NBA and knows what it takes to get to that next level, and he tells you to do something, I think it will give guys an extra moment of pause and say, you know what, if he's telling me to do this and that's what got him to the association, I'm going to take a listen.
He's got a great amount of energy. I really like what he's been able to do thus far. It'd be great to see as the team gets immersed into Horizon League play for the first time under him to see how far this squad can go.
We're going to take a quick timeout, but when we come back, we'll debate the top team in the AFC as well as the end of the NBA lockout. Stay tuned. You're watching Valpo Sports Night.
I'm Molly, and I'm on VUTV.
We're from Kappa Kappa Gamma. We're on VUTV.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm the WVUR General Manager, and I'm on VUTV.
We're always and we're on VUTV.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Aliana.
And we're on VUTV.
Hey, what's up? I'm Milk. And I'm Matt. We're on VUTV.
I'm Helen Dollin. I'm on VUTV.
Welcome back into Valpo Sports Night. Again, joined by Andrew Stem, sports reporter for the Northwest Indiana Times, and Chris Kleinhahn-Schultz, sports director at WVUR. Guys, now for some national topics. We know who the best team is in the NFC, that being the Green Bay Packers, but the AFC is sort of up for grabs. Which team in that conference do you see being the best representative in Super Bowl 46?
Such a tough question for me. Even just kind of looking this over, you look at the top, and through 12 weeks of play, of course including byes, you're looking at 4 teams with 8-3 records kind of coming into the final stretch of the regular season. And when you look at each team, there's something that everybody can do to a certain extent. I mean, Houston has some quarterback woes, but
Some?
just some, with a couple of guys going down.
Yeah.
After that, fairly solidly built team. Pittsburgh Steelers, they always find a way to come out in close games. For me, I kind of looked at the top 2 as New England and Baltimore. And I mean, here it's almost like a preference kind of thing. You want an offense that could guarantee you a victory? You go with the Patriots. You want a stingy defense? You look at the Ravens. Yeah. And I think kind of a little bit of an offensive bias and, of course, the past success of the organization, I kind of lean it towards New England. They also have a bit of a better schedule down the end of the season where they have division rivals coming in to Foxborough to close things out. Just with the experience they have, all the weapons they have, I would feel most confident at this point, even given a toss-up, going with the Patriots.
See, I'll take the other side then of that coin.
Fair enough.
I will take the Baltimore Ravens with the caveat that they have to give Ray Rice the ball 20 times a game. You saw when they lost in Seattle, he carried 5 times. He is one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL, and I don't know how against any defense, let alone the Seahawks, you only give him the ball 5 times. They're predicated on defense. If Ray Lewis comes back healthy, you know he's always going to be in there. Terrell Suggs is having a phenomenal year. Yep. Ed Reed does what he does in the back end. And Joe Flacco is just enough of a game manager. Yep. And, you know, you hate to use that sometimes about quarterbacks, but that's what he does. He's good on those West Coast passing routes, and he gets the ball to Ray Rice. And if they can do that and Rice can be as successful as he has been, I really like the Ravens best overall, especially because when you look at special teams, Billy Cundiff for them has kind of been the difference kicking that ball.
Both teams have shown some inconsistencies, though. I mean, you look at Joe Flacco. Is he a guy that can bring a Super Bowl championship? And you look at the Patriots, hate to say it, but Tom Brady is not the Tom Brady of old as of this year. And that defense has some holes. So
yeah, I mean, John Harbaugh is not Brian Billick. No. And he's never going to be thought to be, he's going to be his own different coach. But as a reminder, he won a Super Bowl with, I can't think of his name now, Trent Dilfer. Thank you. I'm glad you guys picked me up on that.
No problem.
And when you compare Joe Flacco to Trent Dilfer, I think a lot of people would say that Flacco's the better quarterback.
Sure.
And Dilfer's got the ring. So if they can get that same type of management out of him, you know, they're not going to ask them to score 30 points a game, which I think, given the way New England's defense plays, Belichick sometimes has to tell Tom Brady, look, go out, we need 30 points this game. Whereas Harbaugh can say, look, you guys score 17, we'll hold them down to 14, game over.
Sure.
I would even take Flacco over Dilfer. I actually watched a special on that Ravens team just the other day, and what was really interesting to see is that the original starter for the team, Tony Banks. Anyone even remember who Tony Banks is?
I know Tony Banks went to Michigan State, but that's only because, you know, I'm from Michigan, so.
Yeah, I mean, Dilfer stepped in, did a nice role, holds the distinction to be the only Super Bowl winning quarterback not to rejoin that team the next year. He was a guy that kind of fell into this little spot, was able to do just enough to help his team win. And Flacco could definitely do that with this Ravens team. With Tom Brady, even if he isn't, you know, say the Tom Brady of a few years ago, he still has a good arm. He is able to control that offense. He has Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and Danny Woodhead to go to out of the backfield. Wes Welker and Rob Gronkowski, who's been sensational over the past few weeks, to throw the ball to. Just as long as everyone's firing on all cylinders, this could still be a very good Patriots team. It'll make for a good race, though.
That is definitely, you raise a good point. The receivers is one thing that New England has in its favor. For a while, it was if you can stop Wes Welker, you can shut down the New England offense. And now that's not the case at all. Deion Branch had 120 yards receiving last week. Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski have been outstanding, two of the top tight ends in the NFL playing on the same team. So it's not just an instance anymore where if you can stop Wes Welker, you can beat New England. They do have an awful lot of weapons on offense.
I'm giving the slight edge to New England just because I look at the quarterbacks. I hate to say it, but I think the league is moving to a quarterbacks league, and unless you have a superstar quarterback, it's tough, to raise that Vince Lombardi trophy at the end of the year. So I'm giving the slight edge to the Patriots. I don't think Joe Flacco is there yet. He might be there, but again, I think he's more of a manager, and Tom Brady can go out and win a ball game by himself. But guys, to another topic now, the NBA lockout is finally over. Commissioner David Stern announced that there will be a 66-game schedule beginning on Christmas Day. Which side won, in your opinion?
Without getting into all the economics of it, I will say the players slightly for two reasons. First, they're going to start collecting paychecks again, which is always good. And they didn't get quite as much of a split in the basketball-related income as they want. I think they wanted 53%, and it ended up being about a 50-50 split. Sure. But they didn't get the hard salary cap that the owners wanted either. And in that instance, it allows for veterans to make a little bit more money. In addition, they're talking about looking at it and possibly changing the age limit again. Yeah, if they move it up to 20, that is something that's going to benefit the players who are in there now, because all of a sudden money will be going towards players who are already in the league as opposed to ones who are already coming in. So for those particular reasons, I think the players, and specifically I think if you look at a team like the Lakers, who's a little bit older, or you could even make the argument for the Mavericks. Dirk Nowitzki is up there. Sure. By taking out 16 games, there will be more of a focus on just playing. There will be less practice. And I think when you get into April, when the playoffs get started, I think you will see some of these teams that might have been worn down by a full 82-game season be a little bit fresher at the end, and that might make the difference between that. One other team who's got to be awfully happy this is over, the South Beach trio of Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. Because think about it. If they had gone to David Stern's nuclear winter and they hadn't played all year, it would have been 2 years before they'd gotten a chance to play for the NBA Finals again. And now they're going to get a chance, presumably, not that the Bulls and other teams in the Eastern Conference won't have something to say about this, but they're going to have a chance 12 months from when they lost to try and get the bad taste out of their mouth, and I think that would have been even more difficult for them if they'd had to wait a full 2 years.
They want to respond to.
I think pretty much everybody wins in this scenario except for the National Hockey League. Just look at all the attention the NHL was getting just because, well, there weren't any basketball highlights to go to. And you can only talk about basketball so much. ESPN still finds ways to do so. I mean, we've seen that with Brett Favre already enough. They could talk about whatever they want and bring in all the experts they want to it. I kind of look at it more as an owner's win. I say, there are definitely benefits for both the owners and the players in this. I just looked and kind of saw the rough number around 50-50 in terms of the money, knowing that the players are looking to more, and at least saying in the short term, the owners in terms of the economics won the battle. And you bring up the best point, though. Now the players are getting a paycheck, and some of those people that get a lot of money or really need that money, obviously that's going to benefit them. Then there's actually something for them to do now. They get to not only collect that paycheck, but they get to play basketball, which I'm assuming they do because they love.
All right, guys, imagine you guys are a casual fan.
Not going to be hard.
Yep, not hard at all.
Have you tuned out, though? Are you going to come back and watch the NBA on Wednesdays and Thursday nights when they're nationally televised on ESPN and TNT, respectively? Are you going to watch the games that's maybe not your favorite team, but the casual fan the NBA needs the casual fan to watch all those games, to create that revenue? Have they lost the casual fan, though?
I'm going to be honest. I generally don't tune in until the playoffs start. I mean, they say
super casual.
Super casual. There are a lot of people who say that, except for the hardcore fans, people don't start caring about the NBA until after the Super Bowl. And I will take that one step further. I would tune in when the playoffs come around. So, I'm sure if the matchups are intriguing enough, I will probably tune in. I may tune into the Christmas Day games just because there's nothing else going on Christmas Day.
Matchups.
Yeah, they are good matchups, and there's nothing else going on Christmas Day after the presents have been opened and the food's been eaten and all that other good stuff. But in terms of beyond that, I'm not necessarily representative of the whole thing, but I probably won't tune in on Friday unless there's nothing else on. If there's nothing else on, it's good background noise if nothing else.
But that's not a reflection of the NBA lockout. That's just you personally.
That's you. That is me personally more than the lockout.
So if they started on time, it would
be the same way.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I find myself a lot like maybe a lot of other casual fans, or maybe it's like Andrew said, maybe I watch it when nothing else is on, or like as a casual fan of the Chicago Bulls personally, like if they have a really good matchup on at a certain time, I might say, yeah, I'll watch this for a quarter or two, see how it happens. Probably will be more interested by playoffs than anything else. For me, if anything, I've become more of an NHL person just because my roommate is a big NHL guy, and without any basketball to go to, it's like, hey, we can watch the Hawks game a little bit, and this is all right. I often spend more time involved with the NBA via 2K11 and my personal Chris Schultz player that I created than anything else, who I'll throw out just happened to be the starting shooting guard on the Bulls, or sixth place in the Eastern Conference.
Excellent.
So we got some room to grow. But in terms of maybe the more average casual fan, I'd say that if anyone is really interested in the NBA, by the time they get back on Christmas, it'll all be okay. I think for the most part, just losing the first couple months, I don't think it's going to affect too much that the numbers are still probably going to be fairly low.
Because I think when you look at the casual fans, I mean, the hardcore NBA fans would have been tuning in on Halloween to see the openers and all of that. But I think a lot of even casual basketball fans will be going, Christmas time is a good day to start tuning in. So I don't think they will have missed out a whole lot. And they will have, I think, that added sort of, with free agency getting started here next week, that there will be a lot of moves to follow and people will be generally interested when things come back. So I think, if anything, you may pick up a few of those casual fans, and if you haven't angered any of the hardcore fans who have been so upset about how this has gone, then I can't see the numbers at least going down any. They may not jump like you would hope that they would, but I see them at least staying relatively the same.
And Commissioner Stern circled Christmas Day on his calendar and saying, this is when we need to do it,
Yep.
Otherwise it's pretty much over. I mean, once you started losing games, the next best possible solution was to start on Christmas Day to get a lot of energy surrounded. That day is big for the NBA, regardless, because of the matchups. They always stack three good matchups. But
huge springboard, absolutely.
So on that note, we'll take one final timeout. We'll come back, discuss the labor agreement in Major League Baseball. You're watching Valpo Sports Night. Stay tuned.
We're Mesa and we're on VU TV.
We're Handles and we're on VU TV.
Hello, I'm Kathleen and I am with Housing Opportunities and I am on VU TV.
Hi, we're the Lutheran Deaconess Association and we're on VU TV.
Welcome back into Valpo Sports Night for the final topic of discussion. Again, Andrew and Chris. Unlike the NFL and NBA, Major League Baseball came together for a new labor deal. What do you think of the new changes, most notably the adding of the extra wild card?
I think focusing on some other factors, I like the move that you're going to have equal amount of teams in each league.
Yeah.
I like the balance that that's going to
Right,
produce
right.
now, and all the play now between leagues that's going to happen. It's a little bit more representative of what all the other leagues do. The one thing I really don't like about the new setup, and you pointed out, the extra wild card, because of how they're implementing it. I could be okay, maybe best of 3 sounds a little weak, but I could handle something like that. But just one game between the wild card teams, I think it cheapens the system way too much. And it puts the wild card teams at such a disadvantage because now you have to focus on this winner-take-all game just to advance to the next round and then still have a good enough rotation set up to match these other teams that'll be rested up and they could go 1, 2, 3 right down the line. So that's the one thing I kind of look forward to. Is it great to be maybe that 15 that gets into the quote-unquote postseason? Absolutely. But if it means cheapening your chances for the rest of the way, making it harder on yourself, I really don't like how that turns out.
The one really good thing that comes from having this additional wild card is baseball has gotten rid of their insane rule that says you can't face another team from your division in the first round. The team that wins the wild card should have to face the team with the best record. And
I agree.
It seems to me that it's not some sort of disadvantage to the team who finishes with the best record if they have to play somebody from their division because they've already played 18 times. So they already know their strengths and weaknesses. So at least in this particular sense, you will get a chance that if it happens to be the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Rays, and if it's the Red Sox and Rays playing in this one-game playoff, at least you will get somebody from the other divisions ending up playing in the ALCS as opposed to all those years where it was Yankees, Red Sox because they divided them up equally. So I like it that way. I like the changes to the draft. I think that I'm a big college baseball guy, and I think that lessening the amount of money that you can spend on your draft picks will entice more guys to come back to college and will make the college game better. And then in turn, once they're ready to be drafted, I feel like they will be more major league ready. Not that going through rookie ball and A ball doesn't make you ready for the big leagues, but I feel like you spend 3 years playing at a major college program and you come out, you're ready to go. You can end up in AA, you can end up in AAA. You're going to see it in the spring with guys like Danny Hultzen of the Mariners, Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer, a couple of guys who were drafted out of UCLA last year. They're ready to make major league rotations coming out of spring training, and I think you're going to see more of that where guys decide instead of going to high school, they're going to go to college, and they're going to be ready to make the majors when they come out.
I want to comment on the wild card quickly. You look at the NFL, you get a first-round bye if you're the number 1 overall seed. You look at the NBA, you're the number 1 seed. You play a team that's 7 seeds worse than you, a significant advantage. The Major League Baseball never really had that for the number 1 overall seed. Right. You look at the Phillies, you look at the Yankees, played great for 162 games this year, and they were put on the same pedestal in the first round as a wild card team that slipped in at the end. To me, I think there needed to be some extra, put them on a different level as the Phillies and the Yankees. If they play well for 162 games, I mean, that's tough to do. Yeah. To be quickly, thrown away in 5 games, I think is a little unfair.
I think what ultimately needs to happen, and not that Bud Selig has ever asked me, but I think that what Major League Baseball has to do, and maybe they could do a best of 3 for that wild card series, but then turn around and have the divisional series be best of 7.
Okay.
You see what happened in the NBA. The first round series were a lot of best of 5s, and that was when Dikembe Mutombo's Nuggets beat the Sonics. And you get this instance where over 5 games, all you have to do is win 1 on the road. And all of a sudden, this greatness that you talked about is to the point where they're being superseded sometimes, especially if you have a guy like Chris Carpenter that the Cardinals did this year, that they can throw twice and can get these wins, and then all of a sudden you go, well, we won 102 or 103 games, and it doesn't mean anything. And I think more often than not that the Cardinals weren't a fantastic team this year, but I think more often than not, when you get to the point where if you play best of 7, 98 or 99 times out of 100, the team that is the best team will win. And I think that eventually that's the one other change Major League Baseball needs to make, is to make all series best of 7, and then you'll get a little bit truer sense of who the best team is.
You mentioned the St. Louis Cardinals. You mentioned Chris Carpenter, too. So in this scenario, if it was implemented this year, Chris Carpenter would have had to play or pitch in that play-in game. Then the whole rotation is offset. So then again, you have an advantage by winning your division and finishing top in your respective league.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the idea of potentially more games in the playoff system. Something I kind of mulled over heading into this discussion. What if, granted, 4 to 5 is an interesting jump, but I kind of like the idea of maybe someday going to 6 and kind of adopting the NFL system of playoffs, where you have seeds 3 through 6 duking it out and 1 to 2 waiting. It's such a successful system as a 6-team single elimination tournament that that's what the Horizon League does for all of its sports. Well, it's a very good system, and I like how that would work if there would be an easy way to implement that.
And when you think about it, not that expansion is on the forefront at all, but when you think about it, the NFL really has the great model of 2 16-team conferences. In this case, it would be leagues in baseball. 4 divisions of 4 teams. It makes scheduling so much easier. You set up, we're going to play, you pay 20 games against each of the other 3 teams in your division. You play home and home against each other team in your league, and then you play a series against each team in the other league once. You spread it out. Everybody gets to see everybody every other year. And I think eventually, I don't know about the economics of baseball, but it seems healthy enough. They've gone 20 years without a labor stoppage now, which is a record ever since the players formed their union, that eventually it will come to the point you can find 2 more markets that will host major league teams, that eventually I wouldn't be surprised at all if they go to something like that and then in further go to the 6-team playoffs and really give the best 2 teams in each league an excellent bonus for this. Here, you played so well, you deserve to have this time off.
It'd be a while away, but it would be fun to see.
Yes.
Kind of wrapping up this conversation, you have to respect what Bud Selig has been able to do. You look at the 2 other respective leagues, the NFL and the NBA, and they didn't get the deal done until the last hour.
Sure. Well, and you look at the NHL, and they lost a whole year as well. So in terms of economic stability over the last 20 years, Bud Selig took a lot of grief for the 94 work stoppage. And even the things that have come out of the All-Star game, and there are other things that you can argue about, but when you look at what's happened ever since that work stoppage, things have been outstanding for baseball, and you really have to credit Bud Selig for that.
Well, on that note, we're running out of time, so I want to thank Andrew Stem, sports reporter for the Northwest Indiana Times, and Chris Kleinon-Schultz, sports director at WVUR. I'm Drew Taylor. I want to thank you for watching. Tune in next week for an all-new edition of Valpo Sports Night.